Welcome to Convince Me, presented by Bet365. We are kicking off the Power Hour, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you care about, none of the silly fluff that you don't. I am Chad Millman. Over the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, Chris Raybon, they're all going to try to convince me what player props, what totals, what sides I should be betting today in Week 8. Plus, we have Darren Rovell and Evan Abrams on the Action Network news desk. They will update us with the market reports, the trends, the stats, the data you need to get smart and impress your friends today. At the bottom of the half hour, don't forget, we got the touchdown show. Gilles Gallant, Brian Matthews, Charlie Disturco take us through all the best TD props on the board today. Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there, folks. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and over in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia, 18 and over in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, and Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. Before we begin, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. All the picks we discussed today are tracked for free in the award-winning Action Network app. Download it today. Also, don't forget to BetSync your Bet365 bets with the Action app. It's the coolest, slickest way to track your picks with ease and speed. Click the My Accounts button in the My Action tab in the Action app. It's great to be back with all of you. Stuckey did a fantastic job last week. We're going to get into the player props. Sean Koerner, fire away, buddy.
Yeah, so I'm mixing it up today. I'm actually going with a defensive player prop, and that is Cam Curl over 7.5 tackles and assists at plus 115. He plays safety for the Washington Commanders, for those that don't know him. But Curl is coming off a disappointing 3-tackle game against the Giants last week. But he's actually cleared this in 4 of 7 games this season, and this is a fantastic matchup for him. The Eagles have a lot of the most tackles of safeties per game this season and the most tackles in general. So this is always a great spot to take the over in a tackles prop. And, you know, Curl makes a ton of tackles in both the run and pass game. He's usually where the ball is. Plus, you know, the tackle stats are awarded by the home team stat crew. And Washington's stat crew is actually one of the most generous in the league when it comes to dishing out credit for assisted tackles. So whenever Curl comes in on like a run play and he just comes in at the very end, they give him an assist for that. So he usually gets a good boost when he plays at home. So I love the over here. I'd probably bet this up to minus 120 or minus 130.
Koerner, I mean, how long have we been doing this show? What is this? 4 years we've been doing this show? Raybon owns the mantle for most disgusting, most inane, silliest player props, but he's never had to actually give an introduction of who a player is to the audience before, the way you just did with Cam Curl. And I don't think we've ever had a defensive player prop on the show. And I can't decide if you knowing how the statisticians at the Washington home games judge tackle stats is a good thing. Is it a bad thing? Am I worried about you? My mind is blown right now. Simon, I need to hear what you have to say, because right now there's nothing that can dissuade me from taking Cam Curl over 7.5 in this game today.
Shout out about DJ Moore, anytime touchdown plus 220. Come on, right up your alley.
Pandering. Now you're pandering right now.
Yeah, exactly. Going against Chargers, 29th DVOA defense, terrible defense. They got a young kid playing quarterback right now for the Bears. And what do we see what happens when these kids come in? They usually just go after the number one receiver. And you saw last week, he targeted DJ Moore 9 times. Now, obviously, he didn't score last week. that makes me even like even more. I feel like we're getting a free bump here where this probably should be closer to plus 150, but the fact that it's up to plus 220, that's a great number for DJ, who whenever he touches the ball, he could take it all the way. I mean, I know it's a long time ago. Remember in preseason, Chad? He would take little screen passes and take it 90 yards. That's what I expect here. Chargers defense is that bad. So it's a bet that anytime he touches the ball, I feel like we get to this number. And the fact that it's plus 220, I had to give it out. It's like way too high for a guy this much talent playing against this bad of a defense in the Chargers. In a game we know they're going to have to throw. Like the Chargers, they're going to put up points in this game. The Bears don't have a very good secondary. They're going to be passing the ball on offense. This is a great matchup for DJ. So the fact that this was so high, I just had to put in the show, Chad.
Yeah, look, DJ Moore the first couple of weeks was pretty non-existent in that Bears offense. And then beginning in week 3, he just exploded. And as you said, 9 targets last week. And he's going to be the safety valve that the Bears quarterback is looking at. I love this number. I love this spot. Making a good case for me not to bet Cameron Curl, whose name I had never heard of before today's show. But now, thanks to Koerner, I've been introduced. Raybon, can you steal one?
We'll see. We're going with Brandon Powell, who's the new slot receiver for the Vikings now that Justin Jefferson's hurt. So Brandon Powell, over 2.5 receptions. He's had 3 and 4 in his 2 games without Jefferson, 73% route rate in those 2 games, 21% target rate. And Jair Alexander and Rasul Douglas are excellent on the outside in terms of perimeter coverage. Rasul Douglas actually ranks 2nd in PFF coverage grade among all cornerbacks. So Keyshawn Nixon in the slot is clearly the weak link. He's 78th. So I think this is another, easy 3-4 catch game for Brandon Powell. I haven't projected for exactly 4 catches. So I think this line is way too low.
Wow, that's pretty good too. Now I've got a decision to make. I've decided I'm going with Cameron Curl. And the reason I'm doing it is because I'm giving points for originality, for creativity, for showmanship, for thinking about how deep can Koerner go into the statistician's box for the Washington Commanders. I love all these, by the way. I'll probably bet all of these, especially DJ Moore at plus 220. But give me Cameron Curl over 7.5 tackles today for the Washington Commanders, because if you can bet a defensive prop and Koerner likes it, I think we should do it. All right. Nice job, Sean Koerner. Way to come strong. What will your first side be today?
Well, I'm going to enjoy that moment while I can, because I'm going to give you something you hate, obviously. I'm going with the Rams plus 7 here. This is a game that has a luck rank differential of 11, with the Rams being the unlucky team. They've actually been the 9th unluckiest team on the season. A lot of that bad luck has to do with their record in 1-score games. They're 1-4 in 1-score games, and they've had a much tougher schedule than the Cowboys, and both teams played the 49ers, of course. And, the Rams had a much more competitive game against them. They were tied at halftime. They ended up outgaining the 49ers by 20 plus yards, but ended up losing by 7. We all saw, Dallas lost by 32, got whooped on Sunday Night Football. But, the Rams have yet to lose a game by more than 7 points this year, which is, one of the main reasons I like getting this at plus 7. On the other side, the Cowboys pass rush started off the season very hot. They led the league in pressure rate after the first 2 games against the Giants and Jets. But since then, they've really struggled to get pressure. They actually ranked 21st in pressure rate now. So Stafford might actually have a cleaner pocket to work with than we would expect here. Plus, Dallas has struggled defending the middle of the field. They rank 27th in DVOA on pass attempts over the middle of the field. That's where Stafford likes to work with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. So he should be able to take advantage of that here. Again, Dallas should be favored here, but I think, getting the Rams at plus 7 is a bit too much here. So I like the Rams plus 7.
Well, obviously I'm torn on this one because, as Simon and I have discussed on the Bet365 sponsored The Favorites podcast, I love Dallas. Been on Dallas all week. I actually feel like coming off the bye, Dan Quinn scheming up new schemes, especially knowing his defensive backfield has been struggling without Diggs. They finally get a chance to reset and examine what they can do. And that, you did not mention, that Rams offensive line is terrible. Like, they lost last week because they could not stop the pressure. So I am very worried about this defensive line, this offensive line helping the Cowboys get healthy in terms of their pressure rate. So I'm not going to like this one, Koerner. Not going to like it at all. Simon, give me a dose of something better.
So how about a home divisional dog? Right up your alley. Green Bay, +1, +1.5. It's just a spot. It really is. It's like, I get it, people. Green Bay is bad. Jordan Love is bad. They've looked bad this year. But you have to kind of fade the noise. It's such an overreaction. This team isn't as bad as they're perceived. Last week, a lot of that wasn't on Jordan Love. I thought a lot of it was on the receivers not being able to get open. It just kind of got away from them. Here against Minnesota, the lines move too much. The public is overreacting to what happened this past week, right? I mean, Kirk Cousins looked incredible Monday night. I'll give him his flowers. He did. But we know they had a lot of luck in that game. A lot of things bounced their way. A lot of turnovers went their way. And that was a big deal for that Minnesota team, just because they don't have the talent. They need the turnovers to kind of make those things happen. So in this match against Green Bay, we've seen this number flip from Green Bay being a favorite to an underdog. I mean, they're +1.5 at a lot of books right now. That's a key number. And that's a home divisional dog against the Vikings in a spot that, Kirk doesn't do well in these games. Kirk on short rest, his last 9 games, he's 2-7. Like, that's bad. The guy needs preparation, needs extra time. He doesn't have that this week. And this just feels like everything for Green Bay, right? This is their season here. Like, they lose this, it really is over in the division. They need this game to try to win this division. So the fact that it's up to +1.5 now, I couldn't pass on this one, Chad. Everyone's got to take this home divisional jog. It's just a spot to take this team. It's at a 60% clip. This hits divisional dogs this late in the season. You got to do it, people.
Yeah, look, the numbers for divisional dogs, and I hope I'm not stealing anything from Evan coming up from the Action Network news desk with some trends and stats, but divisional dogs in this spot the past decade, 40 games over 500, the past 20 years, 60 games over 500. It's a really good spot. Minnesota looked great against the Niners. Raybon may touch on a little bit of the Niners' troubles, but in his next pick, but they were very lucky against the Niners as well. So, yeah, I like Green Bay here. Stuckey talked about this on the Action Network podcast with Raybon on Thursday. He liked the Packers a lot in this spot. I'm not going to disagree with you on this one, Simon, but will Raybon change my mind and give me something better?
Go Cincinnati +5.5 against the Niners. I like this matchup for Cincinnati on both sides of the ball. On defense, you have a team that's top 10 in pressure rate, top 10 in blitz rate. Trent Williams not expected to play. That's big for the 49ers. And Deebo Samuel's their top receiver versus the blitz. He's also out. So it's going to be tough for this Niner team yet again. It's just that time of the year where I think, you start to see some of these elite teams hit a bump. Purdy, 9.8 yards per attempt when he's in a clean pocket, but just 6.3 under pressure. And I do think Cincinnati could get pressure today. And then on the other side, San Francisco's defense is good. They don't allow many explosives, but Cincinnati is one of those teams that with Joe Burrow, with Jamar Chase and all those guys, they can drive down the field. Their touchdown drives are averaging over 10 plays and 74 yards a drive. And, off the bye the last 2 seasons, we've seen this Bengal team cover both times by 10 points a game on average. Joe Burrow, 16-7 against the spread as a dog in his career, 70%. 14-2 against the spread in his career as a dog by a field goal or more, 88%, covering by over 5 points a game. So love me some Cincinnati Bengals today.
All right, so here's my follow-up question for you, Raybon. Are you of the belief that Joe Burrow is fully healed? He can step up in the pocket. His throws downfield will improve. Obviously, you believe there's something about the Bengals, but there's a lot of sentiment still that they are not all the way back because he's not all the way healthy.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're betting on the Bengals. We're getting value. I think Joe Burrow, we can't say, is he 98%? Is he 100? Is he 94? But we can definitely say he's going to be the healthiest he's been all season, coming off a 2-week bye. And we saw him look better in the last 2 games, even going into the bye. So I'll say he's at the healthiest point he's been all season.
This is a tricky one. This number's been all over the place because of Brock Purdy. It was at 6, it was at 5.5, then it was down to 3.5. Now it's back up to 5.5. I actually have not been able to wrap my head around which side I like in this game. I think I'm just going to pass on the whole thing, to be honest. So give me the Green Bay Packers as home underdogs in this game. Next up, we are going to the market report. Darren Rovell, Evan Abrams from the Action Network News Desk. Take it away, boys.
Hey, Chad, most bet games, Chiefs, Broncos, Vikings, Packers, Eagles, Commanders. Most bet teams, yes, it is the Chiefs. And we always say, oh, it is always the Chiefs. But the Chiefs are actually 5-2 against the spread this year. Vikings -1, Eagles -7. The Eagles is a favorite the last 5 years, only 46-6 against this, 46% against the spread. Most bet overs, the numbers are all 43.5. So I guess people just think these numbers are too low here. Teams that don't normally hit overs, Texans, Panthers, 43.5. People think the Texans are going to run away there. Saints, Colts, 43.5. The Saints are 1-6 to the over, or 6-1 to the under. And the Bengals, 49ers, 43.5. Most bet unders, Chiefs, Broncos. That's a interesting one there. Taylor is not at the game. Patriots, Dolphins, 47, and Jets, Giants, 35.5. I'm sure Ev is going to have something about that number being so low and it also being a bet under. Giants, of course, 6-1 to the under this year. Most bet underdogs to win outright, money line, Bengals +195. They've won as an underdog 30% of the time in the last 5 years. The Steelers +110, second best team in the league. And there's actually a lot of data because they played 44 games over the past 5 years as underdogs. They've won 54.6% of those games. And the Pats +325 against the Dolphins. Actually, when the books and the market says that the Pats are big underdogs, they are, and they don't win. 8-21 the last 5 years, 27.6% winning outright when they are an underdog. Most bet player props, Tank Dell, who I had to look up. I'm sorry, I just had to look up. Over 46.5 receiving yards. Last 4 games, 72, 145, 16 and 57. Jared Goff, 270.5 passing yards. He's only done that 3 out of 7. So that's seems to be a team situation. And Nico Collins. So we have 2 Texans wide receivers, over 57.5 receiving yards. We know the Panthers are woeful against those receivers when they're on the outside. Ev, what do you got?
Well, let me just say one thing first. Sorry to interrupt it, Evan, but I do believe Tank Dell has been a Raybon favorite. I think he hit a Tank Dell prop earlier this year. So I'm fully aware of Tank Dell. He's the, Cameron Curl of Houston Texan wide receivers. Evan,
I'm
go
not
ahead.
scared to say when I don't know someone. So,
No, I appreciate that.
Just a little Google.
You're not, by the way, Darren, you're not scared to say anything.
No, that's true. I'm not scared to
Sure.
say or sing anything. Won't do it this week, but we got
Evan,
Ev.
We
please
appreciate
go.
that. Okay. Jets, Giants, since Darren did hit on it, tied for the second lowest total any game over the last decade. So we'll see where it finishes, but down to 34.5 now. So just a key note there. But let's go into a few of these. So big home dogs, and there's a few of them this week, are actually on a crazy run. So home dogs of 7 or more, 57-32 against the spread since 2020, 6-0 this season. 19-5 against the spread since the start of last year. So today that's Washington, Arizona, and Denver. And right now there's none next week. So get them while they're hot. That's the first one. I used this one on the favorites earlier this week. I feel like I have to say it again. Dogs with low totals. It's really been an unreal run. So dogs below 42 on the total. 23, 8-1 against the spread this season. 160, 102, and 5, 61.1% since 2018. We actually have a few today since it popped this morning. So Cleveland, Giants, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, and Green Bay. So 5 matches so far, but make sure to check the markets before close. Here's a fun one on the Panthers. So 0-6 straight up, 0-5-1 against the spread entering week 8. They'd be the 8th team in the wildcard era since 1990 to start 0-6 with no ATS covers. And if they do lose and don't cover against Houston, they would join Washington in 1998 as the last team to do that. And Chad, this trivia is just for you because I want to see if you can come up with it. So last 20 years, 25 quarterbacks have started for the Bears. Only 6 have been profitable against the spread. I just need you to name one quarterback of the 6 that's been profitable for the Bears against the spread in the last 20 years.
Listen, this is a trash heap Hall of Fame list. I don't know. Is it Chase Daniels? Is it Chad Hutchinson? I would say at least one of them has to be from a group of Kyle Orton, Rex Grossman, Jay Cutler. So
Okay.
I would say it's got to be Cutler has to be one of those 6.
He's not. Cutler's actually like one of the worst quarterbacks against the spread. You actually nailed it initially.
Grossman.
Kyle Orton.
Kyle Orton. I knew it. You know
He's
what? When the
number one.
Bears traded Kyle Orton, in that moment, I knew it was a mistake. The guy was just winning football. I think he won like 60% of his games with the Bears. Like, and even at the Broncos, he was good. I knew they never should have traded Kyle Orton.
One other guy on the list, Tyson Bagent. So you could have just said him. He's 1-0.
Oh, man. That's cheap.
Enjoy.
All right. Nice job, boys. Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and over in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia, 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, and Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, fellas, time to talk about some overs. Koerner, you're up.
Well, I'm here to talk about an under.
Okay.
I'm going with the Patriots, Dolphins, under 46.5. Predictive Analytics teammate Nick Giffen already wrote up a lengthy, phenomenal piece on this earlier in the week. Everybody should go check it out. But I'm in alignment with him here, liking the under in this game, especially, with Jalen Ramsey making his season debut for the Dolphins here. I won't bore you with red zone touchdown percentage regression and pace splits for each team, suggesting the under is a good play. I'll just put it this way. This is the 3rd lowest luck total of the week at -7. Over the past 6 years, after week 3, any game with luck total of -5 or lower has cashed at a 60% clip. That's a 184 game sample size. This year, they've hit 15 of 22 games, so 68% on the season. So, yeah, I'll just leave you with that.
Dude, that's like, if you throw in a luck stat or a ref stat in a total, it's almost irresistible for me. Simon?
I'm going Patriots, Miami over 46.5.
Oh, no, he didn't. No.
There was supposed to be bad weather in this game. They're calling for a lot of rain, some heavy wind. We might still get the wind, but no rain. It looks like a nice sunny day that they're down in Miami. And this total to me has moved too much. It should be closer to 49. It's down to 46.5 now. It's just the public is all over these unders. I mean, they're just betting these unders. Eventually, it's got to catch up to them. It's got to over-adjust at some point. Miami last week scored 10 points on offense, right? Like, they were completely dominated. Now they get to play a Patriots team that is just simply banged up. Like, the odds, Chad. They've lost their best starters. On the flip side, Miami's defense, yeah, they've gotten better. Ramsey's supposed to be back this week. I still think they'll be able to run the ball. And, say what you want about Mac Jones. He has some moments where he does look like a competent quarterback who could push the ball downfield. So, are they as bad as the Bills defense? No. But I still think he'll be able to move the ball like he did against the Bills in this matchup here. And if you hate this bet, me and Chad, we talked all year. I think Evan was the one that started me on this. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago. Primetime unders, Chad. Already went 1-0 this week. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. You don't need to do any work on totals anymore. Just bet primetime unders. What are we up to? 17-6, 17-7. Primetime unders. Just bet primetime unders. So already 1-0 this week. You have another under tonight. I think my man Sean's going to give it out. It's just a great play, just betting these primetime unders. So if you hate this over, just bet primetime unders.
Here's the problem. I feel like you're hedging a little bit. You're like, if you don't like what I'm saying, let's talk about another primetime under. which gives me pause about the over in New England, Miami. All right, Raybon.
You're not an over better, Chad. This is for the over betters. You're not an over better. I'm just giving people options here.
I appreciate that. No, that's true. That's true. Raybon, what do you got?
Let's go Eagles Commanders under 43.5. The Eagles road games this year have been a lot more low scoring than their home games. At home, their scores have been 62, 65, 48. On the road, 45, 36, 37, and 34. And if you want some ref stats, we have Carl Cheffers ref in this game. He's only called 2 defensive pass interferences all season. That's the same number of offensive pass interferences that he's called. He's only called 1 roughing the passer. And in games outdoors, the under is 24-14 in games Cheffers officiates since 2020.
I can't remember, Raybon. I know you and Stuckey talked about this on the Action Pod on Thursday. Was this your favorite under, or was it Stuckey's favorite under?
It's mine. Stuckey's been on overs. Yeah.
Stuckey was on the Panthers Texans over, and you were on this, but you like both of them. I love this under. I'm gonna have to go with Washington Philly. I'm also going to play the New England Miami under because of the luck factor. And I love the luck rankings, as Koerner knows. I think it's one of the best things, one of the most original things that we've done in the past several years. So I will play both of those, but for the purpose of the show, I'm going with Philly and Washington under 43.5 right now. All right, let's look ahead to Sunday night football. We got the Chicago Bears visiting the Los Angeles Chargers right now. The Chicago Bears are 8.5-point underdogs. This opened at 10.5, so money has been coming on the Bears from the professional bettors. 52% of the bets are on the over, 46.5%. Sean Koerner, what is your best bet for Sunday night football?
So I'm going with the under 46 here. Simon already mentioned it. Just go with the under in primetime games and you'll be looking good. But this is actually the lowest luck total of the week at -8. It's mainly coming from the Bears side. They have the 8th highest red zone scoring percentage in the league at 63%, which probably isn't sustainable for their offense. They've also allowed the 2nd highest red zone scoring percentage on the season at 76%. Say what you want about their defense, that probably isn't sustainable either. So we should probably see scoring go down in their game specifically with some regression in those areas. So that's kind of what I think is fueling the luck ranking here. But I already mentioned, games with a luck total of -5 or lower this year are 15-7. That's a 68% hit rate on the under. So I like the under 46 here.
All right. I don't mind that. I like getting a better number on the luck rankings than with New England and Miami. Simon, what's your take?
John, I'm taking the Chargers here, -9, -8.5, whatever it is at now. This number just sounds right for this Chargers team. The Bears, yes, they played well with a backup quarterback last week against the Raiders team. That Raiders team looked like they had nothing in the gas. Like they were just completely giving up. They had nothing going in that game. They took advantage of the Bears team. They're able to move the ball up and down the fields. That doesn't really feel like that's who the Bears are, Chad. Like this team, they have a lot of holes. And Justin Fields' athleticism kind of covered that holes up on offense. Now you're bringing in a kid who's making his first road start after winning his first home game. Just a disaster spot for this Bears team. So hopefully they get us our touchdown from DJ Moore, and that's about it. This just feels like a blowout for this Chargers team that, say what you want about them defensively. The last couple of losses have been on Herbert. Herbert just played really poorly for this Chargers offense. This feels like a nice get-right game for Herbert and this offense against a bad Bears secondary. So shouldn't shock people. I think a lot of people are so shocked this was such a high number for the Chargers team. They're saying, why would they be so high? These guys have the same record. Are they really that good? The books are telling you something. Like if it's this high, if it's not 7 or 6.5, they're kind of telling you this Chargers team is much better than this Bears team. So don't let the record fool you. These are two different teams, a two different level of talent right now. Little scared about the back door, Chad, but I'm going to trust the points. I'm going to fade the public here. I'll take the Chargers at -9.
Yeah, let's not be fooled. This is a terrible Bears team right now. And the Chargers were Justin Herbert connecting on some touch passes that he traditionally is connected on away from having much different outcomes in their past 2 games against really good teams. So I know this number's come down. Would you recommend waiting? Do you think the number will come down even more?
No, I think it's going to keep going up, especially with, it is Sunday morning. Joe Public wakes up. What are they doing today? They're doing teasers, a lot of teasers, Chiefs teasers, Eagles teasers, Chargers teasers. It's just the number's going to keep going up. That's why I'm seeing a couple of 9s pop now. That's why I'm giving out 9. It seems like it's just only going to go up from here.
All right, Raybon, what do you got?
Let's go with Roschon Johnson, who is a rookie running back for the Chicago Bears. I think you know that, Chad, but
I'm aware.
Okay, let's go with him under 29.5 rushing yards. It's actually 30.5 at some books. But I think this number is too high considering he's had 20 rushing yards or fewer in 3 of 5 games. Chicago is a big underdog, and Johnson's not only no guarantee to steal carries from Foreman, who's playing really well. And we saw this last year where Foreman you put him on the field, it's hard to take him off. But Johnson could even be behind Darrington Evans. They use Darrington Evans as that, RB2 at a greater rate than they ever used Johnson. Evans snap rates and touches were higher than Johnson's ever were. So that could be because Johnson is dead last among 50 qualified running backs in yards after contact. So I don't know here if Johnson is going to have, the role we expect. And then the Chargers have been the one thing they've been improving at, because their defense is bad, as Simon said, but against running backs, 3.6 yards a carry this year. The last 3 games, just 2.8. So Johnson could get more carries than we think. He could get 8, 9, 10 carries and still have a good shot at going under this number. But I think he's going to be more in that 5 to 6 range in a trailing game script, potentially the RB3. So, going under on his rushing yardage.
Yeah, what's interesting? I feel like Simon helped make your point. This is going to be a game where the Bears are playing from behind. They're going to need to be throwing the ball. It's why I like TJ Moore, and it's why I like this pick as well. I actually love the under as well. I promise you I'm betting the under. You'll see it in the Action Network app. But I'm going to bet this one too. I'm picking Roschon Johnson under. If you can get it 30.5, great. If you can get it at 29.5, great. It's weird to me that Deontay Foreman is a guy that doesn't get more attention because, every time he touches the ball, it feels like he's going to gain positive yardage. He should be getting the majority of the plays and carries for the Chicago Bears today. All right. This has been the first half of the Power Hour. Convince me. For Simon Hunter, for Sean Koerner, for Chris Raybon, for Darren Rovell, for Evan Abrams. Download the app to find our picks. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. Take it away, Touchdown Show.
Thank you, Chad, and the whole Convince Me crew, and welcome to week 8 of the Touchdown Show on the Action Network, presented by Bet365. I'm Gilles Gallant. I'm joined every week by Charlie Disturco and Brian Matthews, a.k.a. the BMAC. Now, guys, we got a full slate this week. No buys, some decent matchups, but I'll be honest, there's only a handful of games with totals over 45. I'm a little worried about the scoring today, and one of them that has a total over 45, Patriots-Dolphins, that might have some weather issues, and we might see snow for Chiefs-Broncos. So, Charlie, I want to ask you, because we're probably not going to see weather impact Sunday Night Football for Bears-Chargers, but you are based in New York. Can you give us a weather update for the Battle of New York between your Jets and the New York Giants?
Yeah, it's not looking good outside as I look to my left. The natural light, it's not coming in on my face as much because it's kind of dark. There's some rain coming down. I haven't been outside to check the weather yet. I'll wet my finger and stick it up and see. But no, I mean, it doesn't look great, but that doesn't really matter when 2 teams have 2 of the best running backs in football.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anything, we see a pretty low total too. Right now it's about 35. So it should be very interesting to see what kind of scoring we see out of that game. But Brian, one of the guys that I've seen you log in our Action app, and we're going to talk about him a little bit more here in a second, is because you're not betting just touchdown scores. I've seen some yardage plays. I mean, yes. I've seen you log some NBA plays in the Action app as well. Did I see Breece Hall for rush yards this week?
Yeah, so I may or may not have stocked lines for like 48 hours refreshing. Just look, this is one of those matchups you dream of, right? I mean, so I was sitting there hoping it would be under 70 yards. So once I saw they opened it at 68.5, I had to go ahead and log it, before there's any movement. I think it's up to 71.5. So yeah, definitely had to get that one in early. Also, had a Dennis Schroeder pick in there earlier, NBA. But yeah, so I'll have NBA picks in there, NFL picks kind of, as we go along here with both.
Yeah, and just a friendly reminder, if you're wanting to get his picks or Charlie's picks or any of our picks, and you want to get them as soon as possible, make sure to download the Action Network app, set notifications, and that way you won't be left behind for some of that potential line movement. And also, so here's how the show is going to work. We're going to have 3 to 4 picks, all touchdown scores. We're going to start off with our favorite best bets. Then we're going to kick it up a notch. And then we're going to get real spicy with some long shot bets. And then at the end of the show, make sure to stick around because we're going to give out our special anytime touchdown boosted parlay from Bet365. We did hit it last week. There's no gimmicks. It's just some boosted odds for some good players. And the touchdown show is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, gentlemen, let's get started with week 8. I'm going to immediately go to the NFC East. I'm going to the Commanders-Eagles game, and I'm going to take a touchdown scorer named Devontae Smith around plus 250. Now, he's got 2 touchdowns this year. He's playing over 95% of the snaps, so he rarely comes off the field. Now, Devontae, if you have him in fantasy or if you've been betting him for touchdowns over the last few weeks, he's probably been a pretty big dud for you. Extremely overshadowed by A.J. Brown, and rightfully so. But the Commanders are likely going to do everything they can to take Brown out of this game, especially because he pretty much punked them last game for 2 touchdowns. Brian, I'm pretty sure you were on his touchdown score in that game. But why we like Devontae here is the Commanders, they've just been awful versus wide receivers. 9 touchdowns to the position. That's last in the NFL. 14 passing touchdowns allowed overall. So I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a real good time throwing the ball. And Devontae, even in week 4, again, overshadowed, but he did have 7 catches for 98 yards, and he scored in both games against them last year. I think this is a really nice positive regression spot here with a great matchup. So Devontae Smith is my first touchdown scorer of week 8. Now, gentlemen, I alluded to this battle of New York between the Jets and Giants. And last week we did a collab pick on Cooper Kupp. Didn't work out. I do still like Cooper Kupp again this week, but you two have come to the conclusion that this guy is scoring this week in this matchup. Charlie, take it away. Who do you like to score between Jets Giants?
Yeah, like BMAT, I was scouring lines waiting for these to pop. Breece Hall plus 130. Listen, this is the guy in New York, and he's like 6.5 yards per carry. Since restrictions were lifted, he's had a touchdown each week, 42 touches. So they are feeding him the ball, and the Jets realize that he's, probably the best athlete that they have on their team right now. And their offensive success goes hand in hand with Breece Hall on the ground. And this is a great matchup. And why I was looking toward Breece Hall was the Giants are 30th in rush DVOA. You look at who they've given up a touchdown to. They've given up a touchdown to both the Miami Dolphins running backs, K9 Kenneth Walker, Christian McCaffrey, James Conner, Brian Robinson, 2 to Tony Pollard. The only team not to score against them on the ground was Buffalo. And that game was, a little bit odd, to say the least, and a game that Buffalo might have or should have even lost. So I think they're going to force the Jets to beat them through the ground. And given the weather conditions, the Jets are going to take advantage of it. Breece Hall, top 5 in yards per contact, yards after contact per attempt, one of the best in breakaways. So I love Breece Hall. I think this is a smash spot. Alt lines, everything with him.
Yeah, and in this game, especially with the weather, you don't really want to bank on Zach Wilson to throw a touchdown in the greatest of weather. And now we're in a rain monsoon kind of game here. Brian, are you on Breece Lightning too?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Look, I love this matchup. I think and the reason we're getting great odds for this is because the over under is so low. So I just think like if you look at the Jets offense, like you said, who's trusting Zach Wilson every week, right?
Not me.
No,
Not
nobody,
me.
right? But from what we've seen, and even last week, right? All right, Brees he didn't have it all going on the ground. What does he do? Receiving touchdown. This is what I like to see. On top of that, so the rain is a great thing. And then you're looking at Dalvin Cook over there saying, I want to be traded. Brees is getting looks. So, hey, look, I think this is the time to, this is the game where you're going to run the ball. You're going to try to eliminate mistakes if the ball is wet, by keeping it on the ground. And they've got a bad run defense. Brees has looked like he did last year in the last 2 games. So, yeah, I just think he continues to grow on that. Love this spot, even with the low total. And I completely agree with Charlie. The alt lines are a move too here.
The other question I wanted to ask you, Brian, is so both of these running backs, both Saquon Barkley and Breece Hall, you write about the touchdown tiers on our site, actionnetwork.com, basically where you're ranking the likelihood of these guys scoring. Would you have both Saquon and Breece in tier 1 this week?
So I actually have Breece in tier 1 and then Saquon is high tier 2.
Okay.
It's one of those things, again, where you don't want to have, 20 guys in tier 1 and tier 2 still has a good shot of scoring. I think Saquon's got a good matchup. I just, the Jets are, they're getting their 2 corners back this week. They might be able to stack the box, play a little bit more free with their corners. So I still like Saquon a lot, but I do like Breece a little bit more this week.
Okay, so that is the Breece Lightning collab pick of the week. You're taking Breece Hall for Charlie and Brian, and I am going to be on Devontae Smith for our first best bet of the week. All right, let's kick it up a notch. Let's go to best bet number 2. Charlie, you're looking right now at a Saints receiver. Who do you like?
Yeah, Saints game. Listen, you talked about Devontae Smith and how he's due for positive regression. I think a guy who also is due for that positive regression is Chris Olave at plus 210 to score a touchdown. He's the clear number 1 option in New Orleans. His first read targets is second in the entire NFL with 58. He's top 5 in NFL in air yards, a target share about 25%. So at the end of the day, what does Derek Carr do? He gets Olave the ball, and Olave is a producer. And this is a smash matchup, in my opinion. Another alt line matchup for Olave. The Colts secondary, they've had their issues with the wide receiver ones. They're extremely banged up. No Dallas Flowers or Juju Brents. Let's look at who the wide receiver ones, how they fared against Indianapolis this season. DeAndre Hopkins, 8 receptions, 140 yards. I gave him out as a touchdown scorer. He didn't get that second foot in on the Henry pass, but 140 yards. Nico Collins, 7 receptions, 146 yards, and a touchdown. Puka Nacua, 9 receptions, 163 yards, touchdown. Calvin Ridley, week 1, we saw him go for 100 plus and a touchdown as well. So when you look at this matchup, and you look at the Colts, how they fared against wide receiver ones, they have not done well at all. I think Carr's going to get the ball to Olave. I think he's due for positive regression with the amount of the volume out of just a pure volume perspective, how much he gets. So a guy that gets nearly 10 targets per game, I'm going to go with Chris Olave to find the end zone here. Breakthrough again. So plus 210. Give me Olave.
All right. So Charlie is banking on Chris Olave to be the driving force for these Saints. And I imagine New Orleans is likely going to keep their foot on the gas against the secondary. All right. Now let's move over to Titans Falcons. Brian.
Yeah.
Pretty low total in this game, but one of these receivers that you've watched probably playing your entire life. Who do you like in this game? Please tell us.
Yeah, so he actually played high school football near where I did in Southern California. But look, I'm going with Drake London.
Drake.
I don't know why I'm targeting this game. I'm a glutton for punishment. It's a terribly low total. The rain is supposed to stay north of the game, so it looks like it should be all right. But look, if you look at Drake London, we talk all right. Desmond Ridder, they don't run the ball or they don't throw the ball. He's actually 5th in the NFL in red zone targets. He's had 6 or more receptions in 3 straight games. And when they get in the red zone, they look for Drake London. So, you know what? If you look at the matchup too, Tennessee is very stingy against the run. I'm interested to see, how the Kevin Byard trade kind of affects things. But, historically, they're a tough matchup for running backs. So receivers normally have field days against the Titans. So look, even with the low total, I love the volume that Drake London is getting. So at plus 250, count me in for Drake London to score an anytime touchdown today. I just have to play it. Fellow Trojan.
Yeah, I think it did surprise me of how many red zone targets he has, especially the pass attempts and how it's limited for Ritter. And again, his red zone issues. Don't even get me started last week with those strip sacks. But but Drake London, I think as well, is the guy that you want more than like Jonnu Smith or Michael Pruitt or these tight ends who you're going to hear about these revenge game angles all the time, like with Arthur Smith and whatnot. So I think, Drake London is the guy you want. 5th in the NFL in red zone targets. Solid pick by you, Brian. All right, I'm going to move to the afternoon slate, and we're going to look at the Baltimore Ravens versus the Arizona Cardinals. And I kind of mentioned a little bit of a revenge game angle. And while that is obviously part of the cap, it is not the main reason why we're taking. We are going to Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, at plus 260 to score a touchdown, who is, I would say, the clear number one option on the Cardinals. He's got double-digit targets in 4 of 6 games. They use him all over the field. Leads the team in red zone targets with 7. He's also second on the team in ADOT, so you know that they're looking for him down the field. And whether Kyler Murray ends up playing or Josh Dobbs, I don't think it really matters, because in 7 games last year with Kyler, Hollywood averaged around 10.5 targets per game. He scored all 3 of his touchdowns with Kyler last year. And this is a nice revenge game spot at home. Marcus Williams is out. There's no Zach Ertz to compete with targets. It's basically Hollywood Brown and Michael Wilson, who's the rookie. So I love Marquise Brown here at plus 260 to score versus the Ravens. All right, gentlemen, let's look at Sunday Night Football. Now, not an exciting matchup, but again, the fact that there is a little bit of reason for optimism here. It is Bears-Chargers, over-under at 46.5. Now, Dr. Nick is a little bit under the weather, but we still were able to get some fair odds for the anytime touchdown scores from this. So here's what we got from Bet365. So biggest favorite of the week, actually, to score is Austin Eckler at minus 200. Nick has fair odds around minus 140. Keenan Allen at plus 105. Deontay Foreman at plus 160. Roshan Johnson at plus 187. And then Donald Parham at plus 200. I think that might be alluding to Gerald Everett maybe potentially not playing. And then Josh Palmer also around plus 200. DJ Moore at plus 210. Quentin Johnson rounding out that 8 at plus 250. And then, of course, you see the odds underneath. Those are the fair odds that Nick has for projections for the anytime touchdown scores in this game. So, gentlemen, first instinct when I look at this, even without Nick's fair odds, my first instinct was to go to DJ Moore. And I know, obviously, we're not getting the best value. So I think what you could potentially do, if you don't want to bet him right now around plus 210, plus 220, I think you can wait till a little bit closer to kickoff before you lock that in, because I don't think that's going to drop at all by the time we get to kickoff. So you could wait till probably, 10 minutes before it. You might get it around plus 245. But I kind of alluded to that Donald Parham odds around plus 200. Nick has around plus 475 for fair odds. So Bet365, I think, is implying that Gerald Everett isn't going to play. And sure, if that's the case, but again, I'm still not convinced that I think we want to play Donald Parham at 2-1. I know this Bears secondary isn't great, but I think we probably want to look at more long shots, maybe like a Tyson Bagent around 8-1. Darius Davis is around 10-1. If Josh Palmer can't maybe potentially make it all the way through this game. Charlie, when you see these touchdown odds, where do your brain go? Where do you thinking where you would put your money?
Yeah, well, if you want to take a smaller, like on the smaller side, I like DJ Moore and I like Keenan Allen at that lows plus money. I think both of them have great matchups. But and you alluded to it, Donald Parham is likely the tight end 1 in LA. And what we saw with Gerald Everett and Parham as a duo, throughout the beginning of the season and even last, is that the tight end 2 gets a ton of looks. And I'm seeing Stone Smart up to 17-1 out there in the market.
What a name.
Yes. And listen, I don't have a pet rock right here to like pick up and use as a prop, but listen, Stone Smart, he is very, very solid. Like if you look at what he's done and look at his snap count numbers, he's quietly trending up. Last week, he actually played more snaps than Parham. And around the red zone, the Chargers like to use multiple tight ends. That's why we've seen Parham be a guy that's scored with those plus 4 to 6-1 numbers. So I like taking a stab on a long shot here. I love 17-1 because if Everett is out, we're going to see those numbers drop to well below maybe 6-7-1, if not lower, on Stone Smart. So I think it's just an odds discrepancy. I think some books are starting to move, and I just love taking a chance on a long shot here with Stone Smart at 17-1.
Yeah, absolutely. And Trey McKitty was actually a healthy scratch last week too, over behind Stone Smart as well, which again, the name just cracks me up because it's such an oxymoron. BMAT, who are you liking for a touchdown score in Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, the long shot that I did like, and I do like, is Tyson Bagent. I think that, He's just a guy that just seems scrappy. You know, they run a lot of play action rollout with him, you know, get him out, you know, in movement. So, you know, I think that's something that you could see. I do love Keenan Allen. I mean, volume is king, right? And Keenan is going to get a ton of volume. DJ Moore too. I mean, his target share really hasn't gone down. He's still the main focal point. So I do like that look as well. And then I might have to look at Stone over there. I mean, just the name alone, right? So I like that look from Charlie.
Yeah, the bet's just a stone throw away. All right, let's move on from Sunday Night Football. Let's kick it up to our spicy touchdown bets. And Brian, why don't you kick us off?
All right. So look, I'm gonna split up a half unit here. So I'm gonna go a quarter unit on 2 first touchdown scores. And look, Gilles was on this guy earlier, and I actually didn't notice till this morning since I got my picks in the wee hours of the night. But I love that. So look, Gilles on Devontae Smith. I really love this spot. You know, I know that AJ Brown has 127 plus receiving yards in 5 straight games or whatever it might be, 4 straight. But, you know, Devontae Smith is a solid player. He gets overlooked. He could have had 2 touchdowns, dropped 1 2 weeks ago. He's still heavily involved in the offense. This isn't like a guy that's, all right, he's going to get, 1 or 2 targets this week. And I just think at a certain point, you have to get him back going. You got to get him one to feel good, right? So I think, if I'm looking at this game, I like the probability that Philly does score first, right? So I'm going to go with a guy that I like, Devontae Smith. And then, I guess for the next one, I'm going to roll with another D. So I'm going to go Dalton Schultz. So
yes.
First touchdown score. Look, this guy made so much money for me last year in the anytime touchdown market. Dak loved him last year. And I was waiting to see, was that a product of the system or no, it's not. CJ Stroud has found him 3 straight weeks for a touchdown. It's clear that the guy, has a nose for finding, some space when things tighten up in the red zone. Look, Dalton Schultz, give me first touchdown score. I just think, Carolina isn't the greatest matchup as far as receptions total that they've given up, but they have given up 2 touchdowns to opposing tight ends. I think that Dalton Schultz has clearly become his security blanket, CJ Stroud's. I know Tank Dell is back. Nico Collins has a great matchup. But I think those guys can stretch him and get him there to, the 10. And then once you get inside there, feed my boy Dalton. And it doesn't hurt again that I've got a son named Dalton. So let's roll with the namesake here.
All right. Well, and you're preaching to the converted for me because I'm already on Devontae to score, and I love Dalton Schultz just as a Cowboys fan. I also made a lot of money off him last year, which was great in that spot. But again, touchdowns in 3 straight games. Other people are making money off him too now, playing in Houston. All right, so I'm going to take similar strategy here, but instead I'm going to actually give out our first 2 touchdown pick of the season on the show, and I'm going to go back to an old faithful here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take a half unit and put a quarter unit on each one. First one is going to be George Kittle. We're going to take it for 2 touchdowns at 16-1. And we're going to take Tommy Tremble, who's around 12-1. I got him at 16-1 earlier in the week, but I'd still play him at 12-1. Now, Kittle, why we're getting Kittle around 16-1 for 2 touchdowns is because of what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. This 49ers offense been in the toilet right now. That's why we're getting these kind of odds. Like, for example, last week against the Vikings, he was 8-1 for 2 touchdowns. We've already seen a 3 touchdown game that he's done this season versus the Cowboys. And this year, there are only 25 players that have had a 2 touchdown game. And there's 4 tight ends. George Kittle is one of those 4 tight ends. Last year, he had 3 2 touchdown games with Brock Purdy at quarterback. And Brock Purdy, guess who's coming back this week? And the Bengals, quietly, they've given up a touchdown to a tight end in 4 of 6 games. They are a little bit more vulnerable in this spot compared to last season when they were only allowing maybe 1 2 touchdowns to tight ends the entire season. And for Tremble, I'm going to keep betting this guy every week if they keep giving us this kind of odds, guys. Like the Texans rank last in catches to tight ends. They give up the 4th most receiving yards. Ian Thomas is on injured reserve. Hayden Hurst hasn't done anything since week 1. And he played a season high in snaps in week 6 before the bye. So Tommy Tremble and George Kittle for 2 touchdowns is the spicy angle that I'm going with for week 8. Charlie, why don't you take us home here? What is your spicy pick for week 8?
Yeah, I didn't go with the 2+ of the first touchdowns, and I didn't split up my half unit. I'm going all on one player in particular. And listen, Gilles got a Carolina Panther. BMAT's got a Texan. Well, hopefully I also hit with my Texan here. Noah Brown at plus 500. Nice. He just returned from injury last week and got a couple of red zone looks. And I like this spot for him because when you look at the 2 matchups in Carolina, they as good as they are, and it's a great matchup for the wide receivers in general. It's good for Noah Brown because everyone's going to be paying attention to Nico Collins, and quite frankly, I think Dalton Schultz also gets added attention. And Noah Brown is a huge, big-bodied red zone threat. And he's had as many red zone targets in way less games as Nico Collins thus far this year. And obviously, Dalton Schultz is above and beyond the number one, aside from Robert Woods, who is out. And I think that's the key here, is Robert Woods' injury is now leaving a void in this Texans offense of who's going to get the red zone looks. Schultz is obviously going to be one of the first reads, but then I think after that, Noah Brown could very well slide into the second because of his frame and his big bodied, just able to get the ball, hands on the ball. And he's obviously been looked at thus far. So with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, I think those are more of guys that are going to eat up in the middle of the field, down the field. That's where you want to attack in the prop market. But when you look at touchdowns and close to the red zone, I think it's a great opportunity to take a long shot on Noah Brown in a CJ Stroud revenge game. He's going to want to put up points. He's going to want to throw the football. He's going to want to show the world why he should have been the number one pick. So give me Noah Brown plus 500 to find the end zone in what is hopefully, and what I expect to be, an extremely high scoring game.
Beautiful. Yeah. And a former Cowboy as well. So again, it's somebody who did thrive in this offense last season. And I just think as well with CJ Stroud, like he's top 5 in pass attempts per game. They're going to throw the ball a lot. So I think both Dalton Schultz can get the first touchdown. Noah Brown comes over the top on the second touchdown, and we're cooking with gravy, right? So
Tremble in the back door.
The garbage time touchdown. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So those are all of our official picks, but now we're going to move on to the anytime touchdown boosted parlay from Bet365. And the two guys that we opted with are both from the 4 p.m. slate. We're going with Ja'Marr Chase and Travis Kelce. And we're going to parlay those two for anytime touchdown scores. Bet365, they did us a solid, moved it from plus 332 up to plus 358. And look, whether or not he scores, we know one thing. Ja'Marr Chase is going to get a massive amount of targets. 32 targets in just the last 2 games. He scored 3 times versus Arizona. Charlie, you were on that one. And this Niners defense, they were picked apart last week by Minnesota. They've allowed 5 touchdowns to wide receivers this year, 28th in catches to wide receivers. So nice matchup for Chase. And for Kelce, he's our lucky leg. Like we've hit 2 boosts this year. He was on both of them, and he had 9 catches for 148 yards in week 6 versus Denver. Now I will say Taylor Swift attended that game. She didn't attend the Chiefs' last road game versus the Vikings. He did score, and she's not attending tonight against the Broncos. So that's why I love Kelce today. No added pressure from your girl in the stands. Guys, what are you thinking of this parlay here?
Look, Kelce's I feel like, the volume he's getting because of the struggles from the receiving corps. It's almost like you got to keep him on until it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
He gets so much volume, and it's Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball. It's not some, so I love that. And then look, Ja'Marr Chase, he's always open. So ever since he said that, like you said, 30 plus targets, he'll make sure that, if Joe Burrow isn't looking his way in the Stephon Diggs fashion, that yes.
Yeah, Kelce had, 14, 15 straight completions or receptions from Mahomes. Like they didn't even miss a beat. Like they go hand in hand with arguably one of the best 1-2 punches in just quarterback and any receiver tandem. So you don't have to tell me twice about either of these guys. Yeah. So at this point, it's these are 2 of the best red zone options in all of football. They score almost all the time. So give me on both. I love this boosted parlay.
All right, so we don't have to go too much deeper into this. If you don't know who Ja'Marr Chase and Travis Kelce are by this stage, congratulations on making it this far. But again, obviously these 2 guys are studs. We're going to try to parlay them, and they're going to both score today in their games at the 4 p.m. slate. So again, the boosted parlay is Ja'Marr Chase, Travis Kelce, boosted from plus 332 to plus 358 from Bet365. And the touchdown show is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, gentlemen, that's all for today. 4 picks from me. We got 3 picks from Charlie, 4 picks from Brian. We're going to see everybody next Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern as part of the Action Network Power Hour. And if you misconvinced me, you can rewatch the show or download the Action Network app, get all of our picks in one place. You can also check out all of our Week 8 touchdown bets in the Action app. I want to thank you for watching the Touchdown Show presented by Bet365. Bon chance.